Hello, Merry Christmas, YouTubers. Please, before the new year, I want a response for Michael Emmett, what he's doing with the police that I recorded various ways, replacing what's actually digitally recorded and faking all whole bunch of messages they made to me to make me call back. Then they never communicated with me and pretend that I called back for reasons and that I didn't make sense to them and things. That's what they're being influenced to do. That's what the principal in jail that he was involved with other people and with way worse. There are a whole bunch of people that know my name is tied to the family members of probate judges, especially and superior court families with the same houses. So Colo and Smith near me. And they've been playing this game for years from other areas, trying to make it look like it's them or us. And the difference of them and well, who's wrong with the things, that's why no one gets on paper. You have a whole bunch of people from other areas involved. And you're lying about what you think I understand because I'm talking about the predicate acts with WFSB involved. WFSB faked conversations with me, with families involved with the police phones at Wethersfield, the different police phones families at Wethersfield Police through time, as families involved but with predicate acts on my street with a whole bunch of people tied to them, with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake conversations with me as a kid, now as an adult, and with the news. They pretended that too because they had live progression. They're doing this at every campus too. They're keeping the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and a whole bunch of nations at the same time. The people with the news and locations that need to have the same live progressions. All sides in criminal and civil cases, and the names at the courts and the difference between that and the intelligence tied to them. These are names off the Wethersfield corrections offices involved with a Joe DeMore and a Ray Colo, involved with things I recorded that the school gave to the authorities, and authorities had them shut their mouths, and they shouldn't have. They have roles with increasingly with overt criminal enterprises, more with a principal upskirt nature that I caught with way worse with them. They are the people that investigate that stuff, planting evidences in other cases and things like that too. With foreign and domestic military before the World Trade Center attack, in that context and since, as the ones from Connecticut involved with it. There have also been intercities, parallel with interstates and international, because there's also a hyper international. There's also relative to where and to how everyone left out, how we have black people's whites of eyes, the same color eyes. We have sameness, I mean, similarity, and we have difference with a different color, with a halo part of our eyes. We have nature showing us about difference. Nature showing us its difference. We are shown that other species bodies that are completely different species. Even birds and fish have two eyes. Even insects have quality aspects, nature consciousness. Distinctly but non-distinctly and simultaneously. For that which is further hyper simultaneous. Call it what you want. You don't have to agree. Call that. If you deny that it's relative, nature itself comes with demonstration that your logic is skewed. Then you have to be a style speaking on research. Research is recorded. The experts on American history have self-valued roles that are used and have been used remotely, using the value of what our founders said, leaving out what they declassified about how there was a breaching method entrenched, and about how no one had free speech because everyone was sent to each other, collusions with everyone else's roles as groups too, not just black and white grouped tactically ulterior from how nature communicates with it. Nature communicates with it. It's positive as its system positive onto itself, or that difference, or its concentrated difference to the rest of space nature, is forced from here, least of high D's. Because it will only say positive and negative relativity to all parts of itself equally. But per the phenomenon, where it could communicate, where consciousness can be shown, instead, its complete identity of relationship to itself. Here where we have even down to the temperature. We have temperature, what is too hot for us, too cold for us. We have the seasons. See, their complete identity doesn't fit here. We only have we only have an extent of its complete identity. But anywhere we have the extent of the complete of a truth that is true always. Like those three parts of time again. The part of the past that we know is true all ways, to an extent. There's a part now active we know is true always, to an extent. And there's a part that is to come progressively. In other words, this is the value of the seasons. But see, now this has been and is through systems tactical ulterior from nature's. In other words, where nature communicates with us, that we cannot entertain the words and the convictions by them of formal identities of the law, private or A through Z, let alone all that juxtaposed with the criminal enterprises, private ones, and individually A through Z, countries recorded with natures of logic reliant upon self-value, known, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, databases, and their identities of relativity to everyone with the torture, extortion, slavery method. You guys will not permit of a nature of fact, nature of debate necessary to address things like the extortion of George Washington, let alone of our founders, and the plan and their roles with James Madison, his plan that George Washington agreed to help and to use the plan of. The only means that anyone had, because everyone was a fact, nature slave, therefore physical. Everyone had to hide their actual history about themselves too, obviously, because there was a breaching method that had measured everyone down to all locations, areas, states. I mean, before they were locations, areas, states, before there were computers, the republic for which we stand and its databases, identity of relativity to all things. It became criminally foreign before modern religious messengers had to come about. Already, what had been revealed, the humanity. There were proofs that ancient humanity, could not fathom how anyone could get anyone, let alone everyone, to forget how nature communicates and not care about it. In other words, and how it reveals evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. We have suburbs that were designed before America's founders were born, with slavery sickly distinctly against every single person, but also sickly non-distinctly. Northern colonies and southern. That's one of the things that the South is never let to say clear. Not because people believe in prejudice or racism when they hear them trying to speak about it, because they speak about it wrongly, exactly the way the breaching method only leads. The same way with the North. They're a fake difference. More than any, in other words, more than any president forced that, James Madison's plan forced it. You can't understand the Civil War or any war if one doesn't understand James Madison's plan and the founders behind him, and it has him with the plan to counter-extort and force everyone to break the rules and then have no means to defend themselves but to be in the unity. And to get said by everyone, to get the Constitution unabridged. And there's an amendment where we have rights that are too numerous to have to list. See, such things were read. They showed the identities of law, private, formal, to speak little punks games as collusions. Then they got that back. And then that's sustained. And the difference between who's wrong is also used, because it has all, what that causes comes also with demonstrations of the breaching method. But it effectively measures and maintains other things, others ourselves. Blamed. And it's until it is real. So we have natures of industries originally instilled that can't defend themselves, their logic. Like they can't afford the nature of the debate regarding their takes on success, sickly distinctly regarding where they live, regarding what nature of industry they're a part of. What nature of industry their relative, their neighbor is a part of. All these things, we don't want to hurt each other naturally. This is a part of the 666 method that forgiveness is about, because where we could observe the 666 method is like right here, where the branches of government, the private law, and A through Z, you have state collusions, blaming other things, others ourselves. Right where we should have been, right where the answer is, we have black and being generated by how we have black pupils, whites of eyes. And those two colors are the colors that are the same. The same. We have the same color eyes. Well, not, but anyway, we have exceptions, exception nature, used distinctly by. You use this as nature, its identity of relationship to itself, and the value of that. The extent of its identity we can discern with every subject, with what is true always. So we guys have self is used remotely styles depending what they believe as the integrity as of the value of uses of theory and subject treatments. And that's how it was, that's precedence. But some things are only precedents. Like some things are only precedent, like the suburbs, where how home was built before America's founders were even born, before cars were even invented. Cars, let alone trains, trucks, planes, ships that could even carry planes and cranes. In other words, we still have suburbs. The cities were only allowed to unfold per this method that measured and maintained. The suburbs only capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, while being a landscape theory, not realizing, because the breaching method already propagated the only means to roles with the only means to cause positive value nature progressions, acts, and natures. If more and more collusion /s with the breaching methods needs to keep overt and insidious negatives, criminal insidiousness natures of negatives and positive treatments syntactically as collusions to keep its identity of relativity to ourselves from discernment. Nature itself again shows us that a human fact treating nature breaching method is one of the things that we could discern is what slavery was about. And where and how we can be led by that which is true always, not denying the slightest detail, that denying like motivations for slavery were primarily, always tied to the breaching method. The breaching method only allowed roles with it. Everyone was a slave. Now the breaching method only allowed people to do bad things, and they had to do it because they had no choice. So the same reason why they made some jobs for some people that were better than other while they're being hurt with the black-white thing the worst. And they play that too. With the Harriet Beecher Stowe House, Mark Twain House, next to the state capitol. A whole bunch of people next to the state capitol, originally and still, roles with, that, used remotely, criminally foreign influence, our founding locations, with names associated with our founding locations, originally and still, mass identity, theft, fraud, slanders, simultaneously, preemptively, I want to say preemptively, because of things past, so they have to hide things they're shown while they're shown. They need to hide things past, active, and to come. They have to hide their things that are shown where they are used remotely, where all sides in criminal and civil cases, and the law's names, for the interbranch ones, and the intelligence tied to them, and the locations tied to them, or their houses, the ones next to them. When they go to schools, they're putting predicate acts with facts, fake things in databases. A Joe DeMoro looks just like one of the Joe DeMoros, a brother of a John DeMoro. A John DeMoro is one of the ones involved with mayors, retired mayors from Wethersfield and from intercities, with next to the state education department, all Wethersfield, and with houses on Church Street, involved with them, with confessions with them. And these are with the FBI Director Robert Lusky. His co-defendants are also involved with them, through planting evidences through time. And with these are families next to Harvard Hospital, put through the mail fake conversations with me. A whole bunch of different doctors did that, different times too. There's a Dr. Gilmore associated with a Christina Sioka, and our people with the name Mendez next to campuses involved with them with identity theft, fraud, slander, and delusions, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, perspectives on American history and logic, reason, and the validity of IQ tests. They have involved with predicate acts, organized crimes, all kinds of scams with them. More scams at Hartford Hospital with just a dozen or so people than there are streets in Hartford and houses on them. And these are with the houses and businesses next to Harvard Hospital through time. Collusions with them with names next to the campuses intercities. Planting evidences on and off campuses, collusions with various natures of organized crime. And that's why they self-value how they have people pretend they care about their roles with unmarked police forms. WTNH has some acting professors, for example, involved with them with the other I'm not a journalist, but the WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves. And WTNH has all along Main Street in Old Wethersfield. It's conjunctions Church Street in Old Wethersfield. It's conjunctions on Main Street in Old Wethersfield, all the way from there to along which turns into Route 175, along Route 175 through Newington and to Central Connecticut State University. There's a Joshua Julian, I don't know at all, who was pretending other, and a whole bunch of people tied to him, who I only know that were as strangers, but I know them because I remember they were in my presence briefly, in other words, and they're trying to make fake exceptions. It has something to do with their roles this way. And from the founding locations there in Old Wethersfield, that goes right by it goes by right by where there's a witch trial place. It goes right by Webb House too, and they changed it. It was Webb House with no the. See, they have changed it to a theater, and they have the motivations, narratives with it, and the nature of the debate with it. The only reason they got away with it so long is there's criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, fact, treatment, nature, quality, aspect, and nature involved. A Trantola is involved with scams with the news locations too, and the intelligence next to them. The difference of them, we're involved with predicate acts methods there too, whole methods of predicate acts there, and have the people next to them. And this is worse than extortion, torture, and slavery. In other words, WFSB, please do what's right and fix the fake news and give me the names of those people in the interbranch too. It's you guys know it's recorded. There are more people then and now involved with the sides of the campuses too, with identity theft, fraud, slinders. At Wethersfield Police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed there are people with the name Scalora involved with them with predicate acts on my street. I've never seen a Scalora on my street in my life. And people at Scaloras are involved with them with World Trade Center predicate acts. And something to do with their roles with a whole bunch of people from my campuses in Wethersfield have roles with this. With a whole bunch of people from Wethersfield involved with Elm Streets in Wethersfield and in Rocky Hill, involved with predicate acts with facts and differences rackets. Still with interbranch. They use their differences. They use they make faces and they're bullshit while they're putting fake things in databases as collusion /S with a whole bunch of natures of organized crime /S has something to do with their roles through time with the Brownstone place and people associated with the Joseph Dennis, his neighbors, like a former Mayor Gold, increasingly a former Mayor Gold, and people associated with Whiting Forensics and state police, families interstate, have roles also along roads and routes with identity theft, fraud, slanders with a whole bunch of different countries, behavior racketeering on a mass scale, because you have psychopaths as they are actually recorded, A through Z. Otherwise, that body is sensed, including it is a majority of people, including it is everyone, black pupils, any grouping of nations too. They're not going to be able to, this breaching method keeps, you have entertained locations, areas, and states. You guys have self-valued roles used and having been used remotely with descriptions of American history, with descriptions of what caused the American Revolution, James Madison's plan, and the extortion of George Washington. You don't leave out of it. You don't leave out the extortion of any of the founders and where it came from. You don't leave that out, but you left it out because you had it changed too. And that was sustained against Native Americans because it had been since semi-ancient times, because they broke how nature communicates. Which you can't break. So nature will just show our social difference being forced from here, leads of Hadith. Force-based nature transfer. We have means, these are suburbs designed. We have means to go like that with our might together, especially the whole species with the same plan at the same time, admitting the ground as it is actually recorded, criminally born impulse, tactically denatured. Anyone who wants to deny that is going to have inherent to, active to, and progressive to their logic demonstrations of the same thing, because it does not conjoin with the identity of the hyper simultaneous, that which is, capable of being, this is hyper programming, this is hyper intelligence vaccines. This is a method of appreciating bliss in ways that others could not. And you have readings of statutes originally still that left out exceptions and exception nature, left out and never learned to appreciate properly the value of the policy of getting it unabridged, the Constitution, and doing it in a way that keeps how and why we are supposed to be unified, countries A through Z, as a human species body of individual bodies, supposed to be simultaneously independent, and checking why, understanding why. It's because, in other words, we're a species just distinct too, because that's how we answer the questions. Other species bodies of individual bodies with group different / us too. There are animals of the same species. I forgot which one it is in Australia. Looks totally different. See, but such things, from semi-ancient times, but we call it ancient times now. I'm referring it to semi-ancient times because time nature shows us it has, for the order of the mind, to how it has time grouped 3 ways distinctly from 5 ways. For example, as the extent of the past we knew was true always. The extent of was active now we know is true always. In the extent of the future. In other words, we know about the seasons, the value here now. And value, just like identity, has relativity to positive and negative simultaneously. Also to hyper simultaneously. And the slash is also relative to where and how we're appreciating where and how we still are. Temporary / lasting, a special difference here. But it is being forced from here because we have ignored increasingly with every subject the identity of the hypernative, pure, that is showing too the differences between in other words, no one is allowed to use black pupils and whites of eyes as evidences. There's some fake black white, grouping different with subject treatments that shown needed by people to pretend they could speak for integrity. Oh, but the people have to rely on trust. People just need people. If you want people, the people need to rely on people that are admitting it's messed up when it's messed up, and it's messed up. The people want to have it held. We don't believe out how we have. There's a predicate acts with facts method clearer than day. Black pupils. It is time to refer to it this way. There are concentrated predicate acts with facts methods upon the people of New York City, sickly distinctly from the people of Hartford, sickly distinctly on the people from the suburbs, let alone the suburban slash urban, as Hartford is described, let alone the straight urban. The breaching method did more than anyone else to control these aspects, these quality slash aspects, these slash qualities, these aspect denatured, for example. The water's put underground. No more or hardly any worms coming up when it rains anymore and walking into puddles, walking into bodies of water that no longer have fish in them, if they are even existing. They have because people need housing. People need housing, but we could have done way better and for better than free and better quality and put other functions on there. In other words, the sea is denatured. There's mercury reported in the fish. There's microplastics through everything. All kinds of medications going into the oceans. We could have fresh water and make and save more energy lifting it than it takes to drop it. Having beautiful things happen the whole way. Freshwater coral. Bet you there once was fresh. Why wouldn't there have been freshwater coral? I bet you the nature used and would use, you're trying to use the beaver where everything shows everything else. Just like all the parts of your body, show the parts of your body, there are other parts in your complete identity. So we need to help, just like with exercise. We need to help because everything's about hyper-additional nature. And we have to appreciate a special difference here where Earth could be, and our consciousness can be demonstrated to Black pupils. Bullying logic comes from times where A through Z were already criminally foreign influenced database, education, all location slash S. But hyper criminally foreign influence. And everyone was countering it in ways that was blaming the nature's demonstrations of that on other things other than themselves, exactly the way the breaching method knew it. They would, and then defend that, and it would hide behind that. Nature really would demonstrate that too. So he does things to keep that also blamed by things other than themselves. And that, in other words, and then shows that, in other words, it has perfected this method before modern religious messengers were born. It had slavery entrenched north and south, crazy laws against everyone, torture, extortion, slavery. And everyone had to stay roles, exactly why syntactically, otherwise that body was sensed, including if it was a majority of people, including if it was everyone. All natures of counters to it too, exactly the way it wanted and needed. All natures of exception faked too. Therefore, vaccines. There's a complete possession slash S over quality all natures of quality, all quality aspects of nature of debate. They must begin with this principle, the counter extortion of the other founders. Of the other presidents, of the presidents, and of the other founders. There are three natures of our founders. There are the Native Americans who apparently and demonstrably, are 1/3 of our founders, and that's why there is chief. And they're also a group. They're a part of the second third, which is also the face of James Madison and the other founders who were not Native American, grouped with the Native Americans. And then the third, the final third of our founders were the rest of the founders who had to be counter-extorted. And then they went together as the face of James Madison, as we are supposed to explain it. And they got George Washington to agree to use their plan and to force at 13 locations or whatever, how many locations in more than 13 colonies that were present at the time, fighting with themselves, even their own colonies fighting with themselves when they're fighting with other countries, the colonies and things. And there's a difference racket. There's a black and white, northern colonies, southern colonies, sickly distinctly, but also sickly non-distinctly. And rather than use that, no, look, we're all sickly non-distinctly, that would be sensed. In other words, we have means better than free. There's things we all agree upon. We all agree upon health care locations, needs care there. That's why we have to purge. We have all kinds of intelligence associated with these locations. All kinds of drug experts and roles with the agencies and different police forms, where their opinion nature, and their delusions, and their roles with criminally foreign influence, evidences rackets, and collusions at all natures of crime scenes, and with readings of statutes that left and leave out exception nature as collusion / as too. All sides of criminal civil, because the difference is rackets. Because they're getting over on that identity that is projecting to us, showing us why and how really we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the time, same time, black people. So our founders would have been, and we're perceived as as terrorists or as criminal enterprise or criminal citizens natures relative to the laws at the time. But how we had the laws at the time described, there's still our collusions hiding how everything actually was. Because if everyone paid attention, what's actually recorded is unrelenting. This is why from America to Russia to Ukraine, there are suburbs that are designed along that scale of nature that was before cars and before America's founders were even born. Forced. Otherwise, that person who was found out to have been discussing other outside of internationally monitored conversations, that person was tortured, kill her. That's why I learned the notes at Central Connecticut State University. And even if that was made up, that was the value of it. So that's one of the ways of checking it. In other words, they had slavery in China. It's not true. They're incapable of affording what's being with nature's use of our of what is complicated or definition of what is simple. That definition is tactical ulterior and incapable of valuing how we have to check if we're right or wrong. And all sides should be positive about that too. Otherwise, we sense we did something wrong. That's not going to cause positive value, nature, progression, tactical nature everywhere at once. It's not going to be our might to afford how to fix the ground's identity relationship to itself with waters and things like that. Evolution's fruits, gifts, means out of nowhere. It's not going to come from a concrete slab with a skyscraper and people stacked on it, told to walk down that and go to schools that are criminally foreign, tactically delusions, raw, factory with nature, quality aspects of nature. Black pupils, pair. It's time to pair out of each mind who just believes. In other words, there's a quality of factory nature that has been forced since founding at formal or private. They want to have background conversations because they can't afford to have proper. So the Trantol and Trantol, I barely had words with them at all. They have roles with a principal child offender and with the news agencies, with people with their ad placements. They pretend people make conspiracy theories with doctors, foreign and domestic, that have been attaching kids to fake conversations and ties to doctors and themselves and their kids, as prosecutors and judges also personally and professionally involved with them, speaking fake things in the records too. Ugh! A whole bunch of people involved with New Britain Superior Court with that principal upskirt nature that were involved with way worse digital crimes with a police chief Cintron. A John Mayon and others recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. A Jessica Cintron and a Rena Mazzucato. Also, Michael Roberts is one of the ones interstates involved with the state police forms and people with Middlesex Community College, involved with FBI Director Robert Luskin and his co-defendants, and other police forms too, other agencies. I forgot how I brought up, because Joe DeMoro brought an Aaron into it. He walked by me in the campus one time. They probably took a picture of that. There's not something that, no, but there's not an exception. He never had communications with me. And there might be a woman in his family one time when I was asked to cut a lawn, and she was a neighbor. That might have been someone related to him, and she might have called police or whatever she did. I don't know. She had really strange behavior. And these are people increasingly. There's a Tomorrow's Market used to be next to where Hartford Hospital is now, and there's an Ilo's Kitchen down the road from that, which is also next to a campus of Buckley High School. I don't know if it's still there. And the Tomorrow's Market moved to Rocky Hill, which is involved through time, increasingly with people tied to a Joe DeMoro. People spied on me through other, in other words, they find truths. When I did a show and tell in kindergarten, and I love my kindergarten class. I mean, in first grade, in kindergarten, they made me wear earmuffs, and they were influenced to lie about why. In other words, only like they put this book one time, and there was a guy at the piano, but there was another guy sitting or another little figure sitting on the bench. So it wasn't the guy. They said which one's different. Speaking about difference, by the way. And then there was a table on the left side of the two pages open and one big picture. I think one or more people were sitting at their table, or no one was sitting at the table. And I think there was someone walking. There was one person that was walking alone, and you could tell that, and that's the one's different. And they asked us as a group. There was like 3 or 4. Which one's different? I said I raised my hand. When all some other kids did, and she was no, that's not the one different. And I never got to ask, but that was my answer. In other words, that was the only interaction we had. And then they tested me, and the lady said I tested on the test they gave me through the mail. So I tested at 12th grade, reading 12th grade level when I was in kindergarten. Probably because I was premature. My mother had me all the time, and I probably learned to speak sooner. But in other words, by the time I was in 2nd and 3rd grade, and other kids are, we have confessions made to us regarding roles with the predicate action with facts method, criminally foreign influence, factual nature, quality aspects in nature of collusions with that breaching method while pretending other. And this is one of the things that little kids from the suburbs can discern. There was something against Native Americans and against colonists that we didn't want against the Native Americans or the colonists. But it was discernible. And it's relative to our foundation. We can do way better. You can save and make more energy and greater nature by lifting fresh water and dropping it, having it all set up off freshwater coral that's going to live here. In other words, and the nature of infrastructure capable of being, we have to understand we can't do the negotiations with that, right? While at countries A through Z, locations, areas, and states, speaking about economies, leaving out the breaching methods roles with it. The breaching method measured and maintained, that only capable of being. And it measured and maintains natures of industry, like industry of law, with the need to pretend other. They're shown that's part of the way that it uses them remotely. People it could be shown having pretended on the record that they didn't understand people's evidence when they know that people were saying valid things, or they have relativity. Now, even when they word things wrong, they're communicating them correctly. Little kid from from any area, because every area distinctly has an advantage on how to discern things. Because nature's constantly showing us how and why it's making more hyper additional nature with differences. But see, we're not. We have these demonstrations involved with a method that keeps other things, others, ourselves blamed for when nature communicates with and as what causes positive or negative identities of acts, natures, and value/value progressions. And I say it that way because it's the quality of diffusion relative to where and to how nature itself is showing us to discern the difference between criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments, like facts and truths, and ones that are actually true always. Like how there are those three parts of time that are grouped that we know about our true always as value, as its identity in relation to itself and the value of that. That which we know that we are not, but it as us anyway. It is coming to, from, as, with, and for each thing. Boxing, martial arts, and wrestling, they are grouped by nature and demonstration of the identity of the nature. I mean, the identity the sciences share. And they're about fighting by the rules. But the rules have been abridged, again, since semi-ancient times, got referred to as ancient because of the order of the mind relative to the order of the descriptions of things. And database, in other words, to do programs, more and more industries, in other words, they want to deal with the database. So this is what's true. This is the information. This is the database. They want things to work and then be able to, not have 50,000 exceptions and problems. People want descriptions, keep things left out. They can't afford the order of the finite to be appreciated the way nature shows it. That's one of the things nature uses to show us. If its system, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that is being followed and not. But this is more so relative to where it's formally we have convictions made in private, like with the law. I don't mean private like privacy. I mean private law. We're like private lawyers, criminal or civil. Criminal and civil cases are and have been used remotely at the same time while they interbranch, including when they're speaking about other people's cases and things like the witch trials. They have other things. They have roles keeping other things, others, or selves blamed for what nature itself shows us that to blame the witch trials on, which is that torture, extortion, slavery method that was entrenched distinctly against everyone, and playing games with nature's communicating with black/white pupils. Almost see the whites of eyes. In other words, they have the differences interbranch. A whole bunch of people from Wethersfield with their differences interbranch. In other words, that will tell you they were influenced by their roles with hierarchy and their thing to use their differences, pretend passions and emotions with that. Lie about their motivations, what they think about the behavior of others regarding their roles with them. In other words, please get them on paper so I have to keep drawing a map to you guys. What are you guys doing with this judge, with these police chiefs, retired police chiefs, and this police chief Centron with Mazzucato Bakery too, and this South State Valley? What are these people doing with their pictures of their kids on Facebook that are increasingly involved with mayors and things like that had obligations to not hide from me and self-value fake conversation? Oh, that someone told me you guys they're showing fake. They're from off campuses. They're keeping the campuses criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. They have They have police. They have the police forms and roles with the campuses through time. Criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. All sides of the Wethersfield Community Center. There's a Joe DeMora who brought the name. In other words, I don't know what they told to. I don't know what that girl's name was. She knows my name. I don't know her name. I know her friend's name. That, in other words, and there's a Subby Vigerio who's one of the ones further involved with the principal child defender, and there are more obscure natures on pictures on Twitter, and people involved with confessions of people tied to the corner of Elm Street. I mean, not Street and Walker Hill. I don't know at all. They try to make fake exceptions and has something to do with their roles at Trinity College and CCSU with a Joshua Stryker and others planting evidences. Eric Oliveri, and Mark Violet. And there's a Eric Olson and a Matt Olson. I don't know them all. They're involved with a whole bunch of state police families and police forums and FBI, also associated with Mr. Neville and people all along Route 3 who are involved with wire crimes and falsified police reports with the Wethersfield police chief, police, families, retired and stuff, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. In other words, falsified police reports, fake conversations with people, fake ties to people. Increasingly, people with the name Mendez with the Wethersfield police. They have roles with a whole bunch of people next to Fox Connecticut News, too. And falsifying police reports, with the principal being in more obscure nature's roles. And with the new, whole bunch of people with New Britain Superior Court involved with Eric Jensen. I mean, Eric Mendez and his brother. I don't know, his brother uses different names too. Involved with falsified police reports. And a Bob Chase recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. There he has roles with Phil Cololo with them, with federal evidences crimes, with child offenders, also medical, sexual, and legal at the same time. And their family members involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with the news at the same time to prevent voices in the right outcome /S at all locations, areas, and states. That's why we have suburbs that are still designed tactically denatured. They're not even holding worms anymore. Not even the worms, they come out in the rain. Now there's not as many bugs for the birds to find, but now they have worms. But now those are gone. Then they also walk into the bodies of water when the bugs aren't on top of the surface of the water for the fish to come up and eat. No, so everything was supposed to work. Nature works with positive or negative value nature progressions. But there are proofs that the desert in America and the desert in Africa or in Egypt, Africa was both deserts were caused by they took down the mountains to cause them. They changed the grounds, nature's identity, its identity relation. They changed nature's identity. Description means discerning with speech, its identity relationship to itself and the value of that, which are three ways connected and only increasing value. But now, as systems tactical take from our own, so people say, oh, well, look how much money, in other words, those people jump into our conversations too. They can't do that on paper, not legitimately. So they have to self-value all nations of, syntax, formal treatments of law, verbal, breached. Not one has teached. Vaccines. We have to notice how they have self-valued roles, using the words of our founders, leaving out what they declassified about that, leaving out the breaching method, and leaving out what nature itself demonstrated about, with that we could discern just from the parts we hear about. But ask yourself the whole time, because you'll get the right answers this way, even if they were things made up. Say, what was everything about, even if it was made up? I said that about what what's his name? Alex Jones was saying. Right before then, right, the Connecticut court said, oh, they put a suit on him with FBI people involved. FBI people involved with some upskirt pictures on Twitter are further involved with the courts with people tied to Adam Lanza with medical corruption, all kinds of natures of organized crime, federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slander, and delusions too. And people with the name O'Brien involved with Sandy Hook, a prison there in Sandy Hook, who is also increasingly involved with people with predicate acts on my street with the intelligence community, who also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed roles with intelligence community next to Central Connecticut State University and Trinity College. They don't know the extent of it too. There's a Fred Grouze I never saw with my neighbor, and I know, but he sought me out from other years as a stranger. A Fred Grouze. He's involved with a John Maiano too, and his brothers. I don't know his Alex Maiano. Alan was around Alex Maiano one time. They tried to make a fake exception of knowing me. Has roles, planting evidences, interstates with people, and has something to do with people with Providence, involved with the name Violet too, involved with UConn, also with Hartford Hospital, and various criminal enterprises next to it, including if they are unmarked police forms. They have acting professors associated with news stories on Church Street in Old Wethersfield with acting professors that are involved with mail crimes, with doctors that faked conversations with me. A Gilmore tied to a Christina Sioka is involved with them, like with the people with the name Demoro. A John Demoro that looks just like he could have been the father of the. He's involved with a Mr. Apruzzi too, who's my fifth grade teacher. Is involved with people when I was in fourth grade, and then in sixth grade, and and when I was in second grade. They're putting fake things in database, trying to fake exceptions with people that aren't even in the same classes. They're lying what they think about people, and they're lying about what they think those people think about others, like themselves. When we bring up their names, they have people bring up their names, and then they pretend that we're bringing it up because they're sequence shifting. In other words, they never had the breaching method already showed them they have to hide the actual value of their readings of statutes and of reality with all kinds of instances, treatments. Increasingly, people out of the state corrections offices of Wethersfield and the judicial branch offices are names that have roles of predicate acts at the Wethersfield Community Center and the sides of it and exceptions to it has something to do with that's right not far from the three spots at the end of the Brown Turnpike, which a Joshua Julian and a Joshua Joshua Schumack are involved with Wethersfield Police Facebook page, and with Joshua Schumack's mother involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders with them, federal evidences crime, with some KKK themed, black themed, and nutbags with different religious backgrounds, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and with the news at the same time, including with the prosecutor. There's a Brian Silver who's got confessions about his religion involved by Rick Cianfaglione, involved also with the Leahy family, with medical and sexual offenders of kids, also with judges and other judges too, and their family members, also with the prosecutors involved with them. All sides of criminal and civil cases, and the news planting evidences, fake ties to kids with themselves, fake ties to adults with themselves. No, but get them on paper, one name in sequence on paper. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Get them on paper. No one has time for these games.